Welcome to Season 3 of Dating After Death, a podcast dedicated to the journey of finding love again after losing your forever person. And I'm your semi-anonymous host, but if you know, you know. Every once in a while, one of you reaches out to me with a story that is just super unique. And that is what happened with today's guest. She was telling me this really unlikely love story. And as soon as she told me, I was like, oh my gosh, we need to talk. Because not only does she have this very unique story, but she's from Colombia. And I have become very interested in the different ways that other cultures sort of approach widowhood and the way men and women are encouraged or discouraged away from dating again. Obviously, to a certain extent, we all live in a little bit of a perspective bubble. And I know my perspective is limited on what it's like to be a widow and to try to date again in this scenario. My experience is not the same as everybody else's, which is the whole point of the podcast, basically. So talking to people from other cultures is really fascinating to me. And today's guest grew up in Colombia, and so she knows what those pressures have been like, the similarities and some of the differences between American culture and maybe Latin culture or maybe just Colombian culture. I'm not exactly sure yet. Anyway, I know you'll enjoy this interview. She's super adorable. If you are a visual person and you would like to see these interviews, you can go check them out on the Patreon. There are video episodes up every week of my conversations with the guests, and they're unedited, so it's not quite the same tidy little thing that this is, but you just kind of get the raw cut. So without further ado, here's today's guest.
Yay! First time that I talk about all of this in public, let's say. Yeah. So I'm excited, but I'm also nervous.
Totally get it. We're going to try to make it as low stakes as possible.
Okay.
Okay. The reason that I asked you to be on the show was kind of twofold. You have this very romantic and what's the word? I don't even know. Just romantic and also maybe frustrating for you story where we'll get to. And then also, it's been a really big mission of mine for the show to get people on from different cultural backgrounds and with different things to bring to the table. And I know often, I was actually just talking to somebody about this today, often American women are really willing to just speak openly about lots of things. And so it's easy to find American-born women to talk about their stories, but it's harder to find women from other cultures who are willing to do so. And I understand why, because every culture brings its own expectations. So I'm just anxious to talk to you too about what life is like where you are as a widow and that whole thing. So
yes, absolutely. It's important also for me to talk about that.
Okay. So why don't you just start by telling us who you are and then your love story with your husband?
Of course. Well, I live in Bogota, Colombia. That's South America. I am 31 years old, and I met my husband when I was 21. So he was my second boyfriend in my whole life, serious boyfriend, It was a very beautiful story. At the very beginning, we were just dating and having fun, and we didn't want nothing serious. And then it quickly became something very serious. I was his first girlfriend also, official girlfriend. He was a musician. He was a metalhead guy, badass guy, So he was like, I don't believe in love, and that's not for me, and I'm a free soul. And then 1 year in, he was fully compromised. So it was really beautiful to see him also kind of grow along with me, because we were very young when we met. So yeah, we both changed a lot along the whole relationship. So we became an official couple after a year of just dating. And then we moved in together 4 years in. And then in 2019 is when he was diagnosed with cancer. stage
Okay.
4. Um, that was very shocking for both of us. We were just new in our relationship, like living together and getting to discover all of those fun things that you can do, living with your best friend. It was
Yeah.
something like that. We really had a lot of fun and laughter, and we had a cat. We were like this young couple that was willing to eat the world together. And
Mm.
then suddenly he got sick and everything changed.
Mm.
It was bittersweet because, I mean, of course it's a nightmare, but then also our relationship grew so much stronger, and we had to grow up as well very quickly after getting that diagnosis. So we really became, I think that's when our relationship just became the strongest and the closest. We were always together, supporting each other, talking very openly about how we felt, and just like being each other's support. He was an only son, he didn't have any siblings.
Mm.
His mother lived in another city, so I was his family. I was his
Mm.
only family. Me and my family, of course, because my mom kind of adopted him. She was his mom as well.
Mm. Yeah.
So I mean, it was always fun. It was always beautiful. It was always a great laugh. And like I said, seeing him evolve from this badass guy who doesn't care about anything, become the most loving and compromised husband who was always looking to be better to me and how can I improve as a husband, and all of that was really a beautiful experience. I always fully loved him. I was
Yeah.
never not in love during the 10 years that we were together.
Ah,
It
yeah.
was a really, really beautiful story. He was this kind of person who was just magnetic to everyone. Everybody had something to do with him. Since he was, in the music scene, he knew a lot of people. He had hundreds and hundreds of friends. And then I was on the other side of the spectrum. I was very shy, and like I like intimacy. I'm not like one to go out with everybody. And then he was that person. He was amazing. He was just an amazing human being, really.
Did you meet him through the music scene?
Well, that's a lovely story as well, because actually we met twice in
Mm.
life. First time, but we didn't know. First time I was in college. I was out with some college friends. I studied photography and audiovisual media, and I had friends who were working on a radio station in my university, and they had like a metal show. They talked about metal and shared music, and he worked on that show, but I didn't really know who he was. And one day they invited me to a party where they were going to stream an episode, and I ended up hanging out with him. I had a boyfriend back then, my first boyfriend from college, so we hung out with him and my boyfriend, and
Ah,
it was really weird. Like, we spent a lot of that time together, like the three of us. But I didn't know who the guy was. I just found him very funny, very cool. We actually took him, like dropped him at his house on a cab, my boyfriend and I.
oh my gosh,
I
so
don't know
fun.
why. And that's it. That was the end of the story. Like, I never knew anything else about him. And then 4 5 years later, I started working at a call center, and he was there. I didn't know he was the same person that I had met 4 years ago, but I kind of
Mm.
saw the guy and I was like, he's interesting. Like, he's not my kind, but I like him somehow. And we started talking, and we just, I don't know. It took me a while to like figure out that I really was into him. I mean, I felt it, but I didn't want to accept it because he was this kind of guy who didn't care about anything, and blah, blah, blah. And I didn't want that person, like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't want to date a guy like that. But so we met again at that job, and it was a big group of friends. All of my current friends, we all met there, so it
Oh,
was like a
fun.
big family. We started hanging out. Yeah, it was really fun. And but there was always something going on between us, but we never really, like, nothing happened, but we knew something was going on. And then
Yeah.
we finally gave up and we just started dating. um, yeah. And
Oh,
then we figured that we had already met before, and he was like, I can't believe you're that girl. Oh yeah, you had a boyfriend. I was like, yeah, I know, I had a
that was
boyfriend.
me.
Actually, when we married, on his vows he did said like it took us two chances to get together, but if I could have known from the start that I will find in you the love of my life, I would have stolen you from the very
Oh,
first time. He said something like that. It was beautiful. Yeah.
I love that.
So yeah, I don't know.
It's
I
a
like to
beautiful
believe that it was fate, that we really had to be together.
yeah.
It took us two chances, but we did it.
Oh, I love that. So
Yes.
you were so young, and so was he when he got cancer. And did you have any sort of support network when you went through that? Because it seems so rare.
It was, I mean, we had my family mostly and our closest friends, but from the very beginning, he was like, okay, I have cancer, but I'm going to beat this. Like, I'm
Yeah,
100% sure this is not going to get me. So maybe it was in some sort of denial,
yeah,
but our support system was my family mostly and our closest friends. But it was a really difficult thing to handle because it was mostly the two of us. It was just both of us supporting each other
yeah. That must have been really hard.
throughout the whole thing.
Yeah,
Yes, it was almost 3 years, and he gave his all. Like the biggest battle. I always admire him. So he always gave me this hope. I was always scared, of course. Like
yeah,
when from the very first moment that I heard that, I was like, okay, I'm gonna lose him. What am I gonna do? And but he was always like, no, I'm here. We're gonna make it through. We need to stay positive. That was the whole journey until the very end, actually.
yeah. How old did you say you were at that time
When he was diagnosed,
when he died
when he died, that was last year.
last year?
That was mhm.
So it's
That was
been,
February last year. So I was 30.
oh, okay. So you're just past the 1 year mark.
Yes.
Okay. So how you and I connected is because we started talking through the Dating After Death page. And you told me about this story that you have met somebody who lives in Germany and that you're in Colombia. So, how did that happen? How did this come about?
It's a really crazy story as well. So I was on my grief journey, very isolated, to be honest. I have been working from home for the last 5 years. So we were both working from home. So we were always in our house. And of course, after the pandemic, he having cancer, we were really scared to socialize and see people. So we really went out only when it was necessary. And that extended as well past his death. I was still,
Mhm.
from, of course, at the beginning, you have a lot of people around you, like, how can I help you and what can I do for you? But that didn't last more than maybe 2 months.
Oh,
And
wow.
then after that, I was again alone in my house with my pets, working 8 hours in a computer. So I was at a point. I spoke to a friend who lives in Germany, a friend from university, and she had recently divorced. So she was like, "Look, I just divorced. You're going through this. I think this is the time for you to finally come," because she will always tell me, "Come visit, come visit." So she was
Yeah.
like, "This is the time. Just do it. Come." And she got me thinking. And I was like, "Yeah, I
Why
can.
not?
I should do it. Why
Hmm.
not? Just go and see something else and see myself in a different environment because I am still living in the apartment where I lived with him. So
Yeah.
everything was just too much. So I was like, yeah, I want to know who I am without him in a different place, somewhere where I have never been. So I decided to plan this trip to Europe that was planned for September last year. I ended up, another friend from college joined me, so we traveled together.
So fun.
And yes, it was really, really nice. And then there was a friend who I worked with maybe 7 years ago. I worked in a tattoo shop and he was an apprentice tattoo artist. And we were just friends. I was with my husband back then. So I
Yeah.
didn't ever have eyes for anyone else. So we were friends. That was it. And then I quit that job but we kept in touch more or less. And I knew that he had married a German woman and he had moved to Germany. Actually, the last time that I saw him was a day when I was taking my husband to the airport because he was traveling for work to Las Vegas. And I was with my husband and he was with his wife getting ready to move to Germany. That was the last time that I saw him.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, and then after that we never talked again until my husband passed. He found out, he called me, we talked for a while. And then when I arranged this trip with my friends, I thought about him like, oh, he lives there, maybe I can meet him, it would be fun. So I told him, I chatted with him and I told him that I was going to go to Germany, and he gave me his number from Germany and he said, well, call me when you're here, we can arrange something. That was it. Yeah. So I was in Germany with my friends just 3 or 4 days after I arrived from Colombia.
Yeah.
And
how long were you planning on being there?
1 month.
Oh, okay. So there was a while.
It was
I was
1
like,
month.
Germany's kind of big. It's not like...
Yeah, no. And actually it turned into a whole Europe tour.
Oh my God.
We really wanted to travel. We didn't have anything other than the ticket to and from Frankfurt. That was all we planned, but we were ready to just figure it out, and go and see as many places as we could. It was a real adventure, and I was really, really excited because I had never done anything like that. So it was nice. Also traveling with friends, that was really exciting to me. There's another part to the story, and is that I had met a girl from Croatia on a random internet chat. Yeah. And we connected a lot because we talked about grief. It was not grief themed, it was about music, but she mentioned that she was grieving someone. And I said, well, me too. And she said, well, if you want to talk, DMs are open. I reached out through DM and we started this very crazy and beautiful friendship on which we shared a lot of what we were feeling. And she became like my safe place, the only person that I felt I could really talk about openly about how I felt and everything that was going through my mind. She had lost her dad to cancer. I also lost my dad to cancer just 6 months before I lost my husband. So, and she had just separated from her fiance. So she was kind of grieving our relationship as well. So we really, really connected. And when I found out I was going to Europe, I told her, like, look, I'm going there. Maybe we can meet. And she said, okay, yeah, I can maybe meet you somewhere. And then as time passed and we got closer to September, I finally decided I was going to go to Croatia to visit her. That was also very crazy. But we arranged that. So we arrived there. We were in Frankfurt for like 4 days. And one of my friends said, we're going to do something together, like only the two of us. They kind of were really, really close. I was not that close to them. So I was like, okay, yeah. So I was thinking, what can I do in Frankfurt? I started Googling for like museums or stuff. And then I thought about him, like, he lives here. So I'm going to call him and see what happens. And I called him and he said, yeah, we could meet. Let's hang out. Let's go eat something. It will be fun to see you. Okay.
And at this point,
but in my mind,
you're assuming he's married still.
Yeah, of course. In my mind, the plan was maybe meeting his wife, having a beer together, That was what I imagined because I had no idea. So when we met, it was super exciting to see him. We hugged, blah, blah, blah. And he mentioned something about his roommates. And I was like, wait, roommates? So we went to eat and he was like, wait, I have a story to tell you. So
wait, before you tell the story, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, of course.
Did you think he was attractive?
I did. Always. Like, since I met him the first time, I always thought he was cute, but I never really thought about anything with him, because again, I was with my husband. Yeah. And also he was really this kind of crazy guy who was dating a lot of girls, and I saw him dating girls and I actually bothered him about that. So no, I never really crossed my mind, but I always thought he was cute. Yeah.
Okay.
I have to admit that. And when I saw him again, it was also like, okay, he's grown well.
Men age so well.
Yeah. Okay, so we went to eat and he told me, well, I got divorced. And I was like, when did that happen? He said that happened like a year ago. He had separated a year ago, but he was going through the divorce, like the legal stuff, on
Hmm.
that exact moment when we met. He told me the whole story. I asked him, like, why didn't you tell me? And he said, the only time that we talked was when your husband passed. I'm not going to bring you my drama when you're feeling like that. So
Yeah.
no, I didn't really find the time to tell you that.
Oh, it's
And
sad.
of course I understand, but I was surprised. I was really surprised. I never imagined that. I thought he was happily married. So we talked a lot about grief, about marriage, about relationships. It was a really nice conversation. We
Yeah.
talked about like how we felt about dating again.
Mm.
I remember that I told him, I'm so happy being alone, and I don't really think I will find someone that will make me feel as good as I felt. Like I really had an amazing relationship, and stakes are really high, and I'm not interested in going through the dating and meeting someone and, playing games and all
Yeah.
that. So I told him, no, I think I will be alone forever. And I really was convinced that that was going to be the case.
Yeah, you really believe
I was sure, and I was fine with it. I was enjoying being alone. I was kind of knowing me, as an adult, because the last time that I was single, I was 20 years old, so many things changed.
it. Yeah.
So it was, of course, again, very painful all the time, but also it was nice for me to see myself going through all of that alone, and knowing myself on that stage. And I was really comfortable with that. And I
Yeah.
was like, feeling powerful and strong. And so I was fine with thinking about me being alone forever.
Yeah.
And I asked him, like, what do you think? And he was again the same, like, yeah, no, it was a really difficult relationship. He was actually the one who asked for divorce because he didn't feel loved.
Mm.
It was difficult for him. He was convinced that he was going to be alone also. Like, I went through so much pain that I don't want that again. And I've
Yeah.
been feeling really good and powerful on my own, blah blah blah. Same thing. So,
Everybody says the same thing when they're
and yeah,
single.
it's funny. But so yeah, we were like, no, we don't want anything. We spent the afternoon and night together. It was really fun. Like, we went out, I met his friends, we walked under the rain.
Oh my God.
Everything was really, really nice.
And still you were like, I'm not interested.
Yeah. I mean, maybe deep inside I was, but I didn't want to pay attention to it
Yeah.
because he was cute and I was having a really good time. But I
Yeah.
was just like, he's my friend, he is him. So, meh.
Yeah.
And it was really late. We arrived to his house at like 2 in the morning. So he said, okay, so do you want me to take you to your friend's house at this time? Or you can stay here if you want to. There's the living room. Nothing will happen. I was like, well, maybe I'll stay. It's okay.
Yeah.
So we just sat on the living room. We were watching series, having fun, laughing. We kind of started like, getting closer together. And well, basically, we ended up kissing. And
Mm.
I was like, when that happened, I was like, okay, I wasn't prepared for that, but I was really, really happy that it was happening. Like, this
Mhm.
feels good. And ever since I lost my husband and I started thinking that I was going to be alone forever, part of the reason why I thought I was going to be alone forever was because I thought I will always compare someone to my husband,
Mm.
and I will feel guilty and I will feel like I was replacing him and all of that.
Yeah.
So I was scared to face those feelings. So I that's why I also kind of decided to move away from that. So when I was in the situation without at all planning it or feeling ready for anything, and I realized that it just felt good and I was enjoying it, it was like a relief. I was like, okay, I'm not
Mm.
dead.
Yes.
It was really, really nice.
Oh my gosh, I remember that feeling too. Just that when you have that sort of first kiss moment and you're like, oh, thank God I can feel something good.
Yes, yes,
Pretty exciting.
it's exciting. I had fully assumed that that part of me was dead. And
Mhm.
again, I thought I was fine with it, but feeling that fire again was amazing, was exciting.
Yeah.
I was never the kind of person to casually have sex.
Yeah.
I only had two relationships before in my life, and they were the two only people who I had sex with,
Yeah.
So at the very moment when I felt things were moving towards that, I made a decision like, okay, this is the time for you to see if you can do it.
Yeah.
So I decided to try, and it was really nice. It was awesome. I had a lot of fun. He was really caring. I guess also the fact that I knew him already made me feel comfortable.
Totally.
It was, yeah, it helped a lot.
Did he know your husband?
Yes, he did. They didn't interact much, but my husband used to pick me up at work sometimes, and they would say hi from far, but they
Sure.
do know each other. And my husband liked him. And
Mhm.
that's something that I loved so much. He liked him. He always thought he was like nice. Oh, your friend. Yeah. Oh, yeah. He's cool. So
Yeah.
that's something that gives me a lot of comfort.
Totally. It's like having a stamp of approval or something.
100%. Yeah, that's how I like to think about it.
So then how much time did the two of you spend together while you were there?
We spent that night. The day after, I went back to my friends, and we met again at night. Like, we
Mm.
wanted to see each other again.
Yeah.
Again, we had a lot of fun. We talked, same thing, like talking and talking and talking until like 3 in the morning. I already knew that I was spending the night with him
Yeah.
because it was late. So I told my friends beforehand, like, you know what, I'm staying with him.
Yes.
Don't wait for me. But then the day after, we were going to Paris because we had already kind of planned, sketched a little bit of a trip. So we left to Paris. Um, he was all the time like checking on me on the phone. I was surprised about that because I didn't expect him to be that kind of guy. What the
Mm.
image that I had on my mind was, he's the crazy, careless guy.
Yeah.
So he was really caring, and I was surprised, but also kind of trying to convince myself, like, okay, he's like that, but he's probably used to it. He probably does this all the time, so don't go there.
Like he knows how
I
to
was
win
with
me
my
over.
friends. Exactly. Yeah. I was like, oh. So I was like, I'm not gonna fall into that. Can't afford to fall into that either. Like, he lives in
Yeah.
Germany. I live in Colombia. Nothing will happen. This is nothing serious. Let's just have fun. And so I went to with my friends to Paris. During that, I was always talking to him. So he asked me, "Would you like to travel with me?" And I
Oh.
was like, okay. Really? And he said, yeah, I can move my agenda, I can make space and maybe spend those days with you if you want to.
Gosh.
And I said, okay, where would you like to go? He said, it would be nice to see a place that none of us have seen before.
Yeah.
So we did a search while I was on the bus from Paris to Amsterdam
Oh
because
my
we
gosh.
traveled by bus that time. We were searching for places and seeing what to do, and we agreed to go to Budapest.
Cool.
So Amsterdam was okay. I enjoyed the place. Like I said, I was on that mindset of really having fun and enjoying as much as I could. But I was really eager to be in
I'm
Budapest.
sure.
Have to admit it, I was really excited.
Yeah.
Again, I was still on the mindset of this is just for fun. Nothing else is gonna happen after
Sure.
that, but you can enjoy yourself. You
You're
deserve
protecting
this.
yourself.
My other friend was also very supportive, of course. And my other friend was also very supportive, like, yeah, go have fun. Let him treat you well. You
Yeah.
deserve that. So I was really happy and excited to be there. We met in Budapest. It was like a honeymoon. It was crazy because
Yeah.
not I mean we had only been together for 2 days before, but over there it was really fun. Our conversations were always very open. We
Mm.
talked a lot about my husband, and that was so beautiful to me because another reason why I thought I would be alone forever was thinking that nobody will ever be able to accept me loving someone else,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah,
I
that's very
felt
common.
he was just so understanding and open about that. So we talked a lot. We really bonded on that trip. Like, we it was nice. And I asked him at some point, like, what is this? Do you do this often? Is this
Yeah.
normal for you?
That's a fair question.
Because I yes, I was really convinced that he was used to that, like just having those kind of connections, maybe with random people.
Yeah. And you had seen him younger, kind of being a
Mhm,
little like
exactly.
more promiscuous, maybe.
Yeah, that's what I had on my mind. So I asked him, and he was like, absolutely not. We had already talked about his past, and he had already told me that the moment that he decided to get married, he absolutely changed his mind about relationships and people. And he had only been with his wife ever since. He
Mhm.
hadn't even dated after he separated from her,
Okay.
and that had been 5 years. He was married for almost 4 years, so it was a long time,
Yeah.
but still I was like, maybe he's just saying it. So I asked him again, like, what is this? I don't understand what's going on. I don't know how to name all this I'm feeling, because it feels just so big and so crazy, but I
Yeah.
was also kind of scared of maybe just being from that grieving place in which I
Mhm.
was also craving for connection
Yeah.
after being so connected and then so alone. So I thought maybe I was
Like
just.
almost like, is this real?
Mhm, exactly.
I just remember this feeling too, where when you're so sad and you're in that place, that really griefy, awful place, and then something feels good, that the good feels so good because it's like such a contrast to this constant sadness.
Yeah, that was exactly it. It was the total opposite to what I had been feeling for 8 months. And also, I was in a new place where I had never been, knowing, seeing new places, discovering new things. So it
Travel.
was just
Mm.
too much altogether. But it was amazing to me. I felt really happy, and
Yeah.
I was aware that it was a sum of all of the things, but I was also really open to just feel it and leave it.
Yeah.
Something that I learned from my husband was, you only live once, and he was
Yeah.
this kind of person, not just because of the illness, but always, who was so open to experiencing and just living life to the fullest, that
Yeah.
I was in that position, and I decided, made a conscious decision to just feel whatever and leave whatever and be open to whatever.
So that was in September. It's currently May. So what has happened since you left Europe?
So I was there for a month. We were in Budapest for 5 days. Then he went back home, and I went to Croatia to meet my other friend.
Yeah.
And then I went back to Frankfurt for just 2 days, and then
Mhm.
I had to come back. So we decided back then to just leave the moment,
Mhm.
enjoy what we were having at that moment, and try not to think about what was going to happen. And then when I arrived home, we had the conversation, like, okay, what are we gonna do?
Yeah.
And we both agreed that we both feel so good together. We both were initially sure that we didn't want anything, but then we were also sure that we didn't want to
Nothing.
just fool around. Like,
Mhm.
we've been we've been married, we've been in serious relationships for a while. We were sure that we wanted all or nothing.
Yeah.
So we decided that it was going to be all, and we were
Oh,
going to give it a try as a long distance relationship. He told me he had
very long distance.
experienced long distance with his ex-wife, because he met her in Germany, and then he came back to Colombia. So they were long distance for a while. And he
Okay.
said long distance relationships are difficult. I
Yeah.
want you to know that it hurts, and
And
it's
he's
just
Colombian, right?
not a normal relationship. He is Colombian.
Okay.
But are you really sure that you want to do this? Because it's gonna take a lot of work and trust. And but I decided I was going to give it a try. We were planning to meet in January. He was going to come to Colombia in January, but something happened, and he ended up having to plan a trip to Australia in January. So he said, well, I can no longer go. What are we going to do? It
Mm.
was really sad when he said that, because to me it was like, okay, how long are we going to wait to be together
Right.
again? But then the day after he found out that he couldn't come, he called me and said, you know what, why don't you come? And I told him, look, I just went to Europe 1 month ago. I'm not a millionaire. I cannot do
Yeah.
that. Cannot travel to Europe twice in 3 months. And
Yeah.
he said, no, but I'm gonna pay for the ticket. You can live with me. I really want to be with you. I really want to see how this evolves. Why don't you come?
Yeah. And you can work from anywhere, right?
Exactly. So I was like, well, why not? I'm
Yeah.
gonna do it. And
Yes.
we planned the trip. So that was November when we agreed that I was going to go, and I bought a ticket for December. So
Yay.
it was all really quick. We met again in Germany then in December. And it was still really nice.
And how
It
long
was,
did you
of
stay?
course, more calm for 2 months.
Okay.
So
Nice.
we lived together for 2 months practically.
Wow.
Um, but everything was really, really good. It was quick. I had never done anything like that before. But I was open and just, I will go all in. That's
Yeah.
it. So my thought has always been that I've been through hell and back.
Yeah.
What do I have to lose? You know?
Yeah. Exactly. So practically, how are you two making it work being in an intercontinental love relationship?
It's difficult. It's frustrating, like you
Mhm.
said at the beginning, because I feel sometimes I miss my husband every single
Of
day.
course.
And now I'm also missing another person in my life.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's hard. But we're trying our best. So we keep in touch via video call every day. Um, we don't really chat that much. He doesn't like the phone at all.
Mm.
So we also talked about that at the beginning. He mentioned, well, having a long distance relationship requires us to be in touch, but I don't like the phone. What are
How?
we
How
going
are
to
you
do?
doing that?
So we
Oh.
agreed to, I know, we agreed to talk on the phone, like just do calls or video calls at least once a day, have a long call where we can share what we did. We
Yeah.
have a 7 hour difference, so it's also difficult, but
Yeah.
we usually talk when before he goes to sleep after he finishes work. And throughout the day we're not really in contact. Like I always wake up to a good morning text from him,
Yeah.
but that's all.
Yeah.
And I reply to the text, and next thing will be our call. But as long as we have this, I prefer also the call and the video, and that helps me feel closer to him, other than just being chatting the whole day. It's
Yeah,
a
of
little
course.
bit empty sometimes, the
Hmm.
chat. So it has been a challenge, 100%, but we have adapted, and we've had really clear agreements and conversations about how we're going to handle it, if we need to adjust things.
Yeah.
It's
So
so it
what
has
is the
worked.
plan?
It has worked so far. So the plan at this point is that I'm going to move to Europe.
You are.
And that's
Yay.
yes. Yes, I decided it already. I've always wanted to live in Europe, and I had my friend in Germany, uh, and she always talked to me about how amazing Germany is. So I
Yeah.
always wanted to try it. And actually, with my husband, we always had a plan of, once I'm through this illness, we're gonna move out.
Yeah.
And we always thought about Germany for whatever reason.
Hmm.
So it was kind of my plan.
So do you have a plan for when you're going to go?
In my mind, it's going to be September this year,
Oh,
pretty
wow.
soon. But I have a lot of things to arrange here. Um, well, I have to do visa paperwork. I decided that I'm going to apply for a study visa, because we don't want to get married just
Yeah.
for paperwork. We
Yeah.
really want to, see if things work before making that decision. So I'm going to apply for a study visa, but I have a lot of paperwork to do. And I'm also going through, well, I still live in my apartment where I used to live with my husband.
Yeah.
Everything is as we built it together.
Hmm.
I'm grieving this place now,
Yeah.
but it's a conscious decision. Even before the first trip to Europe, I had already started to have this feeling of I want a place, my place, and not our place.
Yeah. It's hard to still be
I
in
had
some
already
people.
decided that I was going to go. Yes, it's, I don't know. I have never felt pressured to make any decision around that. Um, but I've always gone with my gut. And before going to Europe, I felt in my gut that I wanted something, another place for me,
Yeah.
because it really hurts to be here. And the space that he left feels so big. There is a
Yeah.
void, a physical void. So it's not like I want to run away from that, but I want to again experience a place of my own.
Yeah.
So I also have to. I never thought it was going to be that extreme to go to another continent, but
Are you planning to get your own place when you move to Germany, or will you move in with him?
no, I'm going to move in with him.
Okay.
But I plan to. I have to sell what I have here. Um, my husband was a musician and he was also a producer, and he had his
Oh, that's
studio at
here.
home a lot, and we never really talked. He was so convinced that everything was going to be okay that we never really talked about what if.
Yeah. What to do with all the
So I
stuff.
had a lot of decisions. Yes, and I had to do all of those decisions myself. His studio was untouched. His studio was just like he left him.
Mm.
And I used to just go inside that room to feel close to him, and I would
Yeah.
just sit in his chair and cry for hours. But I knew that I had to let the studio go at some point, because I
Yeah.
cannot have, it's just not sustainable. And if I'm going
Right.
to move out
Exactly.
from this apartment, I I had to undo the studio at some point.
Right.
So I did that recently. So the studio, I mean, everything is now packed in boxes.
Yeah.
It
That's all a
has
lot
been
of work.
another grieving process.
Oh yeah.
It's a lot of work. I quit my job recently
Oh wow.
to have the time and the space to go through that. I was having a lot of stress at work, so I decided to quit,
Good choice.
and I feel great about that. But it was also a scary decision to
Yeah.
make. But really, ever since my husband got sick, I've been in this state of mind of living life to the fullest.
Yes.
And that was part of it, quitting a job that didn't make me happy, that was making me sick, that was just putting too much pressure. And I'm going through all these different stages in my life. After the first year of his passing, another new wave of grief came, and um trying to go through that,
Yeah.
grieving kind of his dream, because undoing the studio meant for me like his dream is not going to come true anymore.
Yeah.
And he was so talented and so good at what he did that it hurts to let that go as well. So it's just a lot of movement and things going on. So my idea is to go in September, but it's just a lot of work.
Yeah.
But I feel I'm ready.
Yeah, that's really, I mean, it's so exciting. I always feel a little weird saying this to people, especially when we're not like close friends or anything, but like I feel so proud of you because it's such a big decision to do that. And I think, I think so many of us feel this thing where we just want to like, we know how short life is and we want to live it to the fullest. And, so you just go for it. And this is like going for it to the extreme and for love. And it's exciting.
It is exciting, and it's a decision that I have made. And I have this thing where I always think about what would my husband say? What would his advice be? Because he was my best friend, and
Yeah.
I will always talk to him about my plans, my ideas, anything. And I always know exactly what he will tell me.
Mhm.
And I feel like I want to honor him by doing what he did.
Yeah.
And what he will tell me will be just go for it, do
Yes.
it, don't think about
I
it,
love it. I love
because
it.
that was his attitude through life. So I'm ready. It's
Yeah.
scary and I doubt myself sometimes, but I'm ready.
I'm so
I
happy
want
for
to do
you.
it.
Yeah. I just want to ask you
Thank you.
briefly about, like, my knowledge of like what it's like to live as a widow or to try to redate as a widow is limited to my American experience, and then also what I'm seeing in my boyfriend and he's Indian, and so from their experience culturally. So how would you describe what it's like in Colombia, what the perception of widow is, and the redating and all of that?
Well, Colombia is a very religious country.
Mm-hmm.
I had never faced the reality of a young widow until I was there. In my mind, I was the only person who was going through that. In my mind, the
Mm-hmm.
word widow was reserved for people that was over, I don't know, 60 years old.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I have just met one person in Colombia who
Yeah.
is in a similar situation than I am. So there is a lot of pressure, social pressure, especially from older people, to this idea of grief on which you have to dress in black every single day
Oh,
for a
interesting.
year, and if you are laughing is because you're not hurting. So to me it came with a lot of guilt,
Mm-hmm.
um, because I had this idea on my mind that if I was a widow, I couldn't be happy at all,
Yeah.
and I was going to be unhappy for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Um,
Part of the reason you committed to that idea of being alone.
yes, I was also scared of being judged. I'm
Yeah.
still a bit, to be honest with you. I only the people close to me know about me and my boyfriend.
Yeah.
But I've never made it public, for example.
Yeah.
And I think it's just a topic that we don't talk about. Widowhood and death in general is something that people in Colombia particularly avoid. If you
Mm-hmm.
will tell someone um, the day when I die, they will immediately tell you, don't say that. Don't
Mm.
talk about that. Like, no,
Like we could avoid it. Yeah.
exactly. So it's difficult. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and so we don't really talk that much about that. And it was difficult for me as well because like I told you, I found my safe space to talk about grief and death with a friend, an online friend that I met,
Great.
who lives on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
Because I never really felt, and still don't feel 100% comfortable, even with my closest friends.
Yeah.
They just change topics. They don't want to go there. There is not enough education around that topic, so they don't know how to be there for you. They don't know how to react.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's not much culture around that here, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. I think a lot of American widows would say something similar, and I know personality has a lot to do with it too. It's just always so interesting to me how the culture as a whole perceives it, and then how it affects us and the decisions that we make, and then the guilt we carry.
Thankfully, I have found spaces like your podcast and many others, but most of them are in English.
Yeah.
I have only found one group for widows and widowers in Spanish. There
Wow.
is not much resources. There are no many resources for us in the Latin American community. I haven't found, at least, and I did search for people in Latin America. I don't know how it will be in other, like in Spain, but I couldn't really find resources in Spanish for young widows specifically.
Yeah.
That I could go to not feel alone.
Yeah, because we can put this out onto the page and see if anybody has any resources for different languages as well and different areas of the world. Okay, I'm going to stop us because of time, but I am just so thrilled for you. And I also know that it's probably going to be a really emotional and complicated journey ahead. But I wish you and your German love the best. And I can't wait to hear how it goes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for having me.
Of course. All right.
I will keep you posted.
I was going to say, we're going to have to touch base and see.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, I will let you know what happens.
Okay. I mean, are you so curious to find out what's going to happen? It's like such a great and wonderful story. I will absolutely be checking back in with her once they get all settled in. As always, I want to thank BetterHelp for sponsoring the show. As a perk for our community, having sponsorship from BetterHelp means that you get 10% off your first month's membership if you go to BetterHelp, that's HELP.com/datingafterdeath. 10% off that first month is really awesome. Go take advantage of it. Let me know how it goes. Okay, also sometimes I'm just like, pull it together, podcast host. I totally forgot to ask her the quick questions. I totally forgot to ask her about her song recommendations. So sorry. Sometimes I just get so caught up in the story that I forget to do the things. But that being said, she did give me song recommendations, and they were Wherever You Will Go by The Calling. I obviously didn't get the explanation for why, but I will add it to the playlist, which you can find on Spotify and linked in the show notes. And then she also said King by Florence and the Machine, which I will add as well. So if you haven't checked that out, that's a good thing to do also. All right, everybody. Thank you for the day's patience on this one, and we will see you with a new guest and a new story next week. Bye.